Hello, game 4 here, and I noticed colonies, which means you probably don't want to just go for money. Probably want to build some kind of engine thing. However, it's difficult on this board. Draw is only through prints and ports or villages or tactician. And there's plus buy, tactician, festival. But the draw is really what's hurting you here, and especially with curses and no way to trash them, the engine is going to be weird and hard to build, if at all existent. However, there is Monument, and I'm addicted to cards with victory point tokens on them. Monument, Bishop. Whenever I see them, I want to play strategies that solely revolve around them, which is not always the best thing to do. Empires coming out is not going to help my addiction. Anyway, with Familiar on board and no trashing, you have to try to sort out the curses here. Try to win that curse split. Winning the curse split will give you a bit of time to build whatever you want to build. So here I have 5, which gets me a bit worried because I may not be able to get to Familiar and my opponent has picked up a familiar already. I get a Tactician here. I want to build some kind of double Tactician thing playing Monuments. However, my opponent picks up a Royal Carriage and I feel a bit foolish because the Royal Carriage will allow my opponent to curse me more frequently, and I feel like I should have picked up the Royal Carriage there. And it will never be dead, unlike Throne Room. My opponent gets another familiar here, while I play mine and I pick up a Monument at this point. It is the point of my deck anyway. I want to play a lot of Monuments, especially because I anticipate losing this curse split. So I need to play long and get these Monuments printed and whatnot. So here my opponent double curses me with the Royal Carriage. On 4 here, I pick up a port, well 2 ports, which is questionable at best. They don't really do anything for a very long time in the game. Here my opponent plays a familiar but has 2 potion only, so I'm glad to see that. They would have probably picked up another familiar with 6 curses left. I get another curse, and with 5 my opponent now picks up the Tactician. So really I like what my opponent has been doing so far, and I don't really like what I've been doing. But there's a lot of time in this game because there's colonies, so I can make up. Here I was really hoping to get to 8 to get that Prince going. With the Tactician I can probably line up that Prince and the Monument very quickly. However, just a Royal Carriage for me. My opponent calls the Royal Carriage here on a Monument to get 5 for another Royal Carriage. Playing the Tactician here instead of the Monument, hoping for better things to come here. My opponent gets the Tactician down. Now, first things first, get your Royal Carriage down, and then you can decide when to call it, well, on what action to call it, rather. Natural choice here seems to be Familiar, given that I am quite a bit behind in the curse split, and I don't want to fall way behind, like 7-3 or 8-2 even. That would just be horrendous. So I double curse my opponent, 6 potion. I'm going to ignore Familiar here because there's only 2 curses left, and my opponent will probably give both of them to me. And I go for Artificer. Artificer to me has always been an amazing card. From the moment I read that card, my mind was blown. Artificer is incredible, and with Tactician on this board, Artificer has a lot of flexibility. So here is my opponent's Tactician turn, calling 2 carriages on a Monument and coming up with 11. You can go straight for colony, but with 2 buys, I feel like you want to make use of the 2 buys. You can get Platinum as well, but you can get things like Artificer Carriage, or as my opponent does here, Prince and Village. So at this point, I feel a bit behind, especially with that $2 hand there. I get the last 2 curses, making me feel even more behind. My opponent has a Prince, they have more Monuments than me, they have less curses, more Royal Carriages. It seems like a lot of things are in my opponent's favor, and another $2 hand is not at all happy to see here. I finally have more than $2, and I'm going to pick up a second Tactician here. Again, entertaining some hopes of a double Tactician thing. When I say double Tactician, I mean play Tactician, have a big hand, then play Tactician again. I don't expect to draw my deck, but I expect to string together a few turns where I play Tactician more than once. When I say more than once, I mean like tactician turns more than once. I do not play that artificer, I don't want it to miss the shuffle there. And I do happen to find it here on a tactician turn, so that is quite good for me. Here, I perhaps could have used this artificer to print this monument, I'm not entirely sure. I didn't consider that. Another option was on the first artificer here to gain a tactician and then use the royal carriage to call the artificer again and draw that tactician and play the tactician. However, I do something a bit different, maybe less optimal. I gain a monument with the artificer and draw it up and gain another monument here. So that second monument is at the top of my deck. And now I pick up a prince. Quite late for me, I believe, but I have it now. And my opponent manages to prince their monument here on their tactician turn. So well and truly behind, I feel here. I get a royal carriage on this 5. My opponent picks up a silver, which I find a bit strange, but they only have the one tactician, so they may be pursuing a kind of single tactician thing here. 3 carriages called on that monument, and picking up a platinum instead of the colony as I was expecting there. Here I'm able to print my monument, so at least I'm on par with my opponent, gaining a victory point at the start of my turn, plus getting $2. That $2 is significant. 2 coins rather. So here again I have the artificer with a tactician turn, which is great. I get to have my pick of things and I get another tactician. So this is tactician number 3 for me. Going in for this multiple tactician turns strategy, I pick up another royal carriage with the money I have, I believe. My opponent there gains a philosopher's stone, which I thought was a bit strange, to be honest. You have tactician in your deck, but still have a philosopher's stone, but you're going to be playing for a long time. It will be worth a lot of money. Don't know how much money it'll be worth, but or how often you'll see it, but it will be worth some money, potentially at least gold. Here I call carriages on this princed monument, which is cool. Do not have my artificer here, but do find the tactician and opt for some more ports and another monument. So now I think the ports are a bit more relevant, but still I think the 2 I have is good enough, especially with tactician and royal carriage around. So again, these port plays aren't the greatest, I think. My opponent gets another tactician there, so we are well and truly on the tactician train. Here I notice that I have all 3 of my tacticians and I have 20 something cards left in my deck, so that isn't good. So I go about rectifying it here with the artificer. I can top deck a tactician this way. So now I have 4 tacticians. I will have 4 tacticians in my deck, which is lovely. Here I call the royal carriage on the artificer to top deck the 4th tactician of mine here. My opponent has 2. Get my monuments in play, pick up another prince after I've played that tactician. So this is what I'm angling for. Multiple turns where I get a lot of monuments in play and still can buy something. And if I print more things, then I'll have more money in play. Anyways, my opponent has quite a bit of money here, picks up a colony and an artificer. So here, I'm behind on the points here. Set aside this royal carriage as soon as you see it, usually anyway. Not so good of a turn here. I call a couple royal carriages on this monument to make it better and get a 3rd prince. So really, like I said, I'm hoping to print all of my monuments. My opponent plays their tactician there. I get my tactician in play here, and happy to see this, printing a 2nd monument. So now I'm going to incrementally get more victory points than my opponent at the start of my turn. And with all that money, just going to pick up a colony here. Maybe that was wrong, because if I'm trying to run the game long, I don't want to empty the colony pile. However, I bought the colony, and I think our points are comparable at this point. My opponent has quite a big tactician turn here, coming up with 10 coins and a what is that, 3 or 4 monument plays. So quite a good turn for them here. Picks up a monument and another monument. So they are going hard for the monuments now, starting to turn for something more like what I'm doing. Here, not a great turn, but I have the artificer at least. I can gain something nice. At this point, after gaining this royal carriage, I have to be very cognizant of piles, and I actually hesitate there and pick up a artificer. I want the royal carriage on top of my deck rather than the artificer is the reasoning there. But yes, piles. Here my opponent Philosopher's Stone comes out and gets him to colony, I believe. So it did something. Colony and a carriage. So I have to be very careful of piles. There's what, 2 carriages left and a monument. And I know my opponent is watching them and can run the piles on me with the points advantage they have. What is this? 15 points right now. This prince is lonely, which is sad. On 5 here, I pick up a duchy. Again, scrambling for points here because my opponent can run those piles. They have an artificer as well. Tactician gives plus buy. They have a prince monument. So it is reasonably easy for my opponent to get rid of those last 3 cards and finish the game. So here, this is a good turn for me, I believe. I'm able to see, well, I have the 2 prince monuments, obviously, seeing another one, calling 2 royal carriages on it. There was some thought of whether to hold back a royal carriage there for my next turn, which I know will be big because of the tactician, but I decided to call it and pick up a colony. That was the reason for calling the final royal carriage there, to get the colony. My opponent picks up another colony with that Philosopher's Stone, so it is doing work. I thought it wouldn't do work, but it is doing work. I pick up a province and an estate here, desperately going for points, and now I'm just a couple points behind. My opponent only manages to pick up an estate on that turn, which is good to see from my end. I call a couple carriages, leaving one on the mat still in case I want to do something with it. Maybe an artificer will show up, I don't know, but nothing else shows up, so I again think about holding on to this for the next turn. But I decide to play it just to get up to colony here. And here my opponent has a bit of a think, which is always scary when your opponent tells you they're thinking. Can they end the game? Because I have, what, 12 points advantage, so my opponent needs to empty piles and to get 13 points to win here. I don't think they can do that. I think that is too much. I think I have enough cushioning with the points here. And I'm looking good to end the game here now, actually. I think there's 1 carriage and 1 monument left. I have the artificer here. I have a lot of money, at least $4. So I'm looking good to end the game here. It's just how many points can my opponent get. So this game was quite fun. Printing monuments, getting these tacticians in play. I have, what, 4 tacticians, which is incredible. That's probably a record for me. So this was a lot of fun. The artificer is amazing, especially with tactician on board. So here my opponent is just having a bit of a think, and I think they come up with a variation where they can end the game, but they will finish 1 point shy of what I have. Maybe there was platinum in hand or something. I don't know what my opponent had in hand, but the artificer can do magical things. So here my opponent just gains another artificer, calls the royal carriage on the artificer again, here gaining nothing just for the money. And with 12 and 2 buys, I thought it would have been colony, but no, better play is province and an estate. And I basically have the game sealed up here once I see that play. The monuments will get me past my opponent's victory point total, and it's just a matter of using artificer here to gain something and buy the last monument. This prince didn't manage to make it onto a monument, but it's okay. Not a big deal, really. I say that because I'm ahead and I'm winning the game, but that is the end of game 4. Definitely a fun one. So thank you for watching. Leave comments on what you would have done differently here, because I feel like there's a lot of scope for things to do on this board. Anyways, thank you for watching and see you in the next game.